Okay, hello everyone. Today is Thursday, February the 23rd, and we are still continuing in our study of Gnosis, the introduction to Gnosis by Samuel Aun Weir. And Sarkina, would you like to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah. Greetings, everyone. Let's become still for a few moments. Inhaling and exhaling, letting go of the things of the day, and just relax into the moment. Relax into our awareness of our divine beings and how that divine being is in each and every one of us. And as we breathe in its light and its love, we exhale that light and love out into the world and into each other. Know that you are one with all that is, was, and will ever be. You are truly divine. You let it be so, and so it is.
And so it is.
We're on lesson 8, and this lesson deals with alcoholism. This vice has 3 perfectly defined aspects. 1, initiation. 2, intoxication. 3, death. We begin with initiation. Some people begin this horrible vice during adolescence, others in their youth, others at adulthood, and a few during old age. Many are the causes that lead people to the vice of alcoholism. The adolescent that is initiated into this horrible path does it because he wants to feel like a complete man. He has a false concept of manhood. He believes that being a man means to be a drunkard, smoker, fornicator, adulterer, etc. The youngster reaches the crude vice of alcoholism, seduced by his friends or embittered by sufferings. Many times, an amorous deception or a difficult economic situation tends to be the basic motive for initiating the fatal path of alcoholism. The mature man who joins this horrible path of alcohol does it, as always, provoked by the spring of his own bitterness, perhaps the death of a loved one, an amorous deception, a divorce, the loss of his job and his fortune, etc. The human organism rebels against the first drinks. At the beginning, the organism is not yet intoxicated, and it is obvious that it strongly rejects the harmful ingredient of alcohol, to which it is not accustomed. Vomiting, the uneasiness of the stomach after the huge drinking sprees, etc., are symptoms that the organism uses to eliminate the noxious ingredient. The struggle of the organism is usually very strong, but the malignant, which intends to distort it and arrives at. I'm sorry, I skipped a whole sentence. All right, I'm going to go back here. These are all symptoms that the organism uses to eliminate the noxious ingredient. The struggle of the organism is usually very strong, but the malignant will intends to distort it and achieves it. No drunkard is without his moral tragedy. The already intoxicated drunkard knows how to very secretly guard the aforementioned tragedy. The drunkard who is initiating himself in the vice always exercises his tragedy, but when he comprehends that people do not understand him, he prefers to keep quiet. Any comment on any of that or experience in any of that?
Well,
Um,
I know he's talking about alcoholism, but I would also like to include all types of addictions, not
Mhm.
just alcoholism. Um, and yeah, and he did mention that people are, you know, they might have some tragedies, but he doesn't really, and I read this earlier today, really doesn't go into that. You know, there's a what do you call it? Uh, People are trying to hide, or they use drugs and alcohol as a way of escape
Mhm.
sure.
from the from whatever traumas that they have experienced, or whatever fears that they have. So that's,
Very
you know,
true.
some of the things that I might, you know, that I wanted to you know, add in also.
Mhm. Harriet, you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I have known um, people that were alcoholics. I had an uncle that was an alcoholic, but he disassociated or estranged himself from the family when he was under the vice. And once he got himself straight, he rejoined the family. And the one thing that I remember distinctly, oftentimes when he came to visit, and they would go to, the family would go and visit other friends that they had grown up with, and something as simple as a can of beer, he refused to touch it. He says no, you know.
Yeah. I grew up in a family that went way back to, they made wine and that. And in my whole family, cousins, aunts, uncles, as far back as I can think of, none of them were alcoholics. But at every meal, they always had their little juice glass of wine.
Mm.
And as kids growing up, on Sunday, we always had a little shot glass of wine. And as we got older, eventually ended up to a juice glass of wine. And because of that, I think that's why none of us became alcoholics, because it wasn't something that was forbidden to us. And getting back to what Penelope was saying about addictions, many times people who develop various addictions, it's because it's been deprived of them to a certain extent. And therefore, when they finally reach, we'll say, a teenage age, they overindulge. And then because everybody else is doing it, no matter whether it's, you know, whether it's drugs, alcohol, smoking, driving fast, you know, whatever, all the various addictions, I don't even know what all of them might be, because anything that you overdo could be an addiction of some sort. But I think it's when we feel that we've been deprived of doing something, then we overdo. And when we overdo, that's when it becomes that addiction, and it becomes hazardous to our health and our well-being. It's just like somebody who all the time lived in poverty, and then all of a sudden they have money, they overspent, you know? And I agree with Penelope that even though he is talking about alcoholism, and maybe that was what was prevalent at the time he wrote this, but there are so many addictions that people, you know, become addicted to because of various things that happen in their life. And they're hiding or escaping from facing those tragedies, or those moments of sadness, or those
And you
moments
know,
of feeling unsuccessful. Go on, Harriet.
no, I was going to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be those mind-numbing things that people take into their bodies. Sometimes people become addicted to food
Yes.
or to spending money,
Hmm.
you know. It might seem harmless, but it can be devastating if it's overindulged.
Yep. My dad always said, whatever you do, it needs to be done in moderation.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
when you do anything in moderation, um, it becomes less of a vice.
Mhm.
And something that just occurred to me now was my daughter, when she was 16, had her first job, and when she got her first paycheck, she loved candy. And she came home and she said, I made $200. And I said, you did? I said, well, let's put some of it you can put in the bank and then leave some out that you can spend and buy things. She goes, oh, I already spent it. And I looked at her and I said, what did you spend $200 on? And she goes, this, and she held up a bag of candy, $200 on candy. I looked at her and I said, you're going to put some of that in the freezer or I'm tossing it. Because I was so, excuse my French, but I was pissed. And I said, God, I said, you're going to have to help me deal with this because I am mad, But there again, she'd never had a paycheck. She overspent because, to her, giving her $1 or $5 was nothing, but that $200, she just overindulged in that. So it's true in that respect. Anything else?
Well, I was just gonna say, a lot of times when we are trying to mask pain,
Mhm.
and you can mask pain with anything, it's just your form of escape. We don't want, a lot of times we don't want to experience the thing that's obvious to us.
Mhm.
Whatever it is, whether there's been some form of abuse or something that has been negated in our lives, or some other type of trauma. If we're trying to escape that pain, we don't want to feel that.
Mhm.
So we mask it with different things. And I'm not by in any means a professional who can that works for people with addictions all the time. But generally there is some type of pain that they are or have not dealt with,
That they're
and
trying
they
to.
have to learn how to expose and express
Mhm. That's
that
why
that that symptom and that pain that's within.
it's important to have some sort of coping mechanism, such as, and it's hard. And as you say, none of us right now are, professionals in that respect. But what semi-professional we are, having certain coping mechanisms that help you and me and anyone else deal with what they're going through, such as prayer, meditation, gardening, sitting on the porch swing, taking a walk, having some sort of coping mechanism that we can use to help us to deal with whatever it is we are going through, and understanding that, um, we're going through this right now, but it shall eventually pass. But
And that we don't have to be ashamed.
right.
We don't have to feel shame because of what has occurred in our lives, whether
Mhm.
whether it happened to us or whether it happened, because of us. We don't have to feel shame in any of that. And I think that a lot of times, if we can release ourselves from shame, we can release ourselves from the pain, we can really see what it is and what the addiction actually does to us.
Mhm.
And I read this, and I think that, I don't like, and I know he was a psychologist, right? Or a psychiatrist, this guy.
I don't know. I don't
Was he some
remember.
type of therapist? But I think that when you use words like, some people begin this horrible vice, I think that helps keep you involved in that shame,
Mhm.
you
Like,
know.
yeah, and taking back to when he wrote this,
Yeah.
you know,
Even, yeah, in 1961, he wrote it
well,
in, yeah, well, this is what I
that's
have
when
in
it
the
was
book.
published. That's when it was published, but he did write it before then.
Yeah, but they still had Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's one of the
Yeah,
things that Alcoholics Anonymous talks about is, releasing from forms of shame,
right.
that you don't have to, and that's why, that form of group therapy was so important, because, if you can say what you're afraid of, or you can say what you're ashamed of around other people who also share in that same situation, it's not only you.
Right,
Yeah, so I
right.
think that, and I say, well, this is him. I'm getting to know him a little bit better, but I think that words like that, very, very, very critical.
Right. And that's why it's important for us to discuss. Let's see, my
Hmm.
computer just flashed on. Hang on, let me turn this off.
Uh,
It wouldn't come on before, and I turned it off before. Now I'll make sure it
mhm.
stays off. Okay, I'm not even near the on button. I don't know.
It
You
just
know,
needed to warm up like those old fashioned TV tubes.
I don't know, but I have been having trouble with technology. I got stuck in Walmart the other day. I didn't even have any packages, and the buzzer kept going off. You know, the buzzer that if somebody's stealing something,
Right.
and I
Uh-huh.
didn't have any packages in my arm. I had nothing in, well, I didn't even have my purse with me, my car key. So I gave my car key to the lady, and I went through, and it went off again. And she looked at me and she said, "What medal do you have on?" And I said, "Nothing." So anyway, let's go on. This next section is entitled Intoxication. Alcoholic intoxication comes once the defenses of the human organism have been overcome. On arriving at this second phase, the organism no longer feels well without alcohol. The doctor intoxicated by alcohol can no longer carry out a surgical operation without his favorite drink. His pulse shakes, and if he carries out the operation, the results are very bad. The businessman can no longer do business without alcohol. He feels timid, nervous, and fails. Without his drink, the worker is finally incapable of working. He feels weak. Alcohol becomes a necessity for the intoxicated organism. The intoxicated one drinks and drinks, stimulated by the secret spring of his moral tragedy. Some drunkards eat and drink. They last longer. Others do not eat. They say so as to not lose the drunkenness. They die very soon. Food supports the entire digestive process, but the lack of food, as a matter of fact, leaves the organism totally defenseless, and the result is death. Any comments on that section? Well, one of the things I thought of was the misuse of prescription drugs. Even though they're prescribed, they are drugs, and we can very easily get addicted to them. And people that get addicted to them then need something stronger, a higher dosage, and whatever.
And
And
that can lead to death as well.
right, any of the things that Penelope mentioned earlier, that some people who are in pain need the pain, because they don't feel right if they're not in pain, if that makes any sense to any of you.
Say that again.
Some people need the pain. They don't feel complete without pain. My one grandmother, She was constantly breaking an arm, breaking a leg, breaking her hip, breaking the, and that. And I said to her one time, I said, why do you always want to be in the hospital? When you break your arm, you're in the hospital. When you broke your hip, and this, why? And she says, I feel secure in the hospital. And I said, maybe that's why you break things, so that you can go to the hospital to get fixed. I said, you need to fix your home so that you feel secure at home. And that. So that's what I'm saying. Some people need that pain to make them feel complete. Just like he was saying about, people who become alcoholics need that drink,
Right.
because they don't feel good unless they have that's what's sustaining them.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing with drug addicts and so on.
Right.
Oh, hi, Forrest.
Hi, I just came back from dinner. Sorry, came back.
No problem.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think a lot of
Anybody else?
times. Oh, I was gonna say, I think a lot of times when we are, I found this to be, like a strange chapter. Seems kind of, incongruent to the rest of the, book. But I guess that he's just trying to, talk about things that have to do with the body. I'm assuming, but I think that when he talked about that, people who eat more, they die not as soon as someone who doesn't eat. When they're throughout their addiction, so I don't know what the purpose of that chapter is,
Okay.
that little section.
I don't know if this,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know if this will help you, but Gnosis means to know yourself. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like you were saying, that some people get into drugs, alcohol, smoking, whatever addiction they have, because they don't want to face the reality of what they're going through, the situation that they might be going through, or what they're experiencing. And in order to know ourselves completely, we have to face ourselves, no matter what.
Yeah.
Whether we feel successful or feel as a failure, but we have to face ourselves and learn to know ourselves. So that's when I first read this, that's what I thought he was getting to, was the idea of knowing yourself.
Okay.
And as you brought up the various addictions, we all have something. I'm short and I'm overweight, but I like food. I can't, and I've never gone a whole day without eating something, even if it was one slice of dry toast the whole day, just that one slice. But I've never been able to just drink liquids, like drink juice or drink water for a whole day.
Okay.
Or to fast for a whole day, because I enjoy food.
Okay.
So I've begun to learn and look at myself, and what I'm doing now is I'm still eating, but I'm trying to eat healthier.
Okay.
I'm working on, eating, but healthier things rather than just, the candy or something.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that's what I think he's driving at here is, and the way he thinks it fits into this book is that it's learning to know ourselves.
Okay.
And this organism that we call our body.
Okay.
In that respect, okay, alcohol and drugs are mind numbing. Other addictions, like I mentioned earlier, food or shopping, things like that, I don't think they're mind numbing like alcohol and drugs are, but at the same time, it takes you out of yourself. It puts you in a
It
place
gets you high.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
shopping is like can be a high for somebody.
Yeah.
It increases your endorphins.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah. So I guess,
And-
well, I'm just thinking, you know, I don't know. I just, because I guess anybody who who drinks, like, you got to feed that liquor, so, so that you won't you don't have the spins in the morning.
Right.
You know what to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're an alcoholic.
Right.
Those are different. That's a different label. I mean, it's a different symptom, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah,
This is the right word. So, that, whether you eat when you drink or whether you don't eat when you drink, you're still, it's still, eating does not stop the cirrhosis of the liver.
right.
Right.
Well,
Eating
Yes,
doesn't
no,
stop
that-
your heart from, being enlarged. The food does not, um, you know, food doesn't, I don't think the food makes you live longer,
Yeah. Well, I think what he was saying is when you're eating, while you're eating, you may have that drink there, but you can't drink and eat at the same time.
Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. Sure, you can. You can drink and eat at the same time.
Of course.
Both in your mouth at the same time?
Yeah, you take a bite of food and then you drink the liquor, right? Right behind one or the other.
Right.
Yeah, you can eat and drink at the
No, but
same time.
I knew that. But I'm talking about simultaneously.
Yes, I'm saying yes.
That's not simultaneous. That's eating and putting the drink in your mouth.
Right.
I'm
So
saying,
so you can be chewing food while you have liquor in your mouth at the same
yeah,
time, and you swallow them both at the same time. I'm just saying, it's possible.
okay.
It's
Well,
possible.
okay. Earlier when I was mentioning about, my family and that, none of them became alcoholics. The difference between somebody eating and drinking, that's what they do. An alcoholic they live for the alcohol.
I have
They
a whole,
need it.
I
They
have a
need
lot of alcoholics in my family. A
Mhm.
Yeah.
lot of alcohol. So alcoholism. I'm very familiar with alcoholism.
Mhm.
So so
And I said
that's why I say, when you eating food does not make you live longer. It
it just prolongs the death.
don't
And
even
it's
prolong death. It doesn't
Mhm.
even prolong death. I mean, so that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
He's not a professional, and I don't, and I don't know. So
It's just his train of thought.
it's just his
Yeah.
train of thought. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, the next section is entitled Death. This is a very short paragraph. Every alcoholic intoxication concludes with death. Death can result from an ulcer, hepatitis, or cirrhosis of the liver, or
Mhm.
generally from any bad aspect of the liver, stomach, etc. It has been clinically proven that the drunkards that live longer are those who eat while they drink, and that those who live short lives are those who drink and do not eat while drinking.
Mhm.
The death of a drunkard is very horrible. They become very nervous in clinics and hospitals due to the lack of alcohol. They clamor, shout, demand the bottle of alcohol. Their desperation is frightening. Some die vomiting blood, others with terrible bloody diarrhea, etc.
Mhm.
Any comment on that?
No.
no.
No, I don't have any either. The next section is entitled Psychology of the Drunkard. And
Mhm.
as Penelope had brought up earlier, this can go to, I think, to any addiction
Mhm.
that the addiction runs our life rather than us running it.
Right. Mhm.
And that's kind of how I see addiction. But anyway, he
Mhm.
says here the psychology of the drunkard. The totally intoxicated drunkard spends everything on the vice. When the drunkard does not have any more to spend, then he becomes a beggar, thief, swindler, or in the best of cases, nothing more than a simple slave of alcohol, a beggar of alcohol. The intoxicated loses all concepts of honor, dignity, responsibility, etc. And only one thing in life interests him: drinking. Alcohol becomes a vital, fundamental necessity for the intoxicated. That is all. The serious things of life do not have any value for the drunkard. He is completely irresponsible. The intoxicated alcoholic is immoral in the most complete sense of the word. Dignity, word of honor, virtue, etc., have absolutely no importance for the intoxicated alcoholic. The hard-hearted drunkard laughs at all those human qualities and even feels infinitely superior to his fellow man.
Hmm.
Any comment on that?
Well, just because I've known a lot of alcoholics.
I have a friend that's, it's what you're saying is a friend that's dealing with that exactly word by word what you're saying.
See, I know a lot of people that are, that are functioning alcoholics. I know a lot
Mm-hmm.
of functioning alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that they wouldn't want to not, not be alcoholics, but I think it's just that he just has a harshness, and he's very opinionated and
I
critical,
think,
and
yeah,
very critical, of,
I
and
think, go ahead.
yeah, this is what I see of him, that he's very critical, and he kind of, it seems like he's generalizing, when he says, the intoxicated alcoholic is immoral. That's not necessarily true,
Mm-hmm.
I think he,
because
I think he's
everybody's
taking it,
different.
yeah, I think he's taking it to the furthest, the
Right.
worst
Yeah.
case.
Generalizing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, not even generalized. I think he's just taking it to the very worst case that could possibly happen. That if, if you're considered an alcoholic because you drink and you eat and you maybe get drunk at parties and that type of thing, but yet you're functioning in your life, that maybe you have a good job and you work hard, and then you come home and you drink the rest of the night, but then you get up in the morning and you're able to go to work, and that's not the type of alcoholic I think he's talking about. I
Okay.
think he's talking about the one who, that's all he lives for is the alcohol, or all he
Mm-hmm.
lives for is that high. All he lives
Mm-hmm.
for is the drugs.
Right.
All he lives for is to eat.
Mm-hmm.
All he lives for is to spend money,
Mm-hmm.
and not be responsible. Because let's face it, there are people in this world who are irresponsible, whether they're drunks, druggies, um,
Or not.
overweight, weight. And what I mean by overweight is like they're up in the thousands of pounds, where they can't even, take care of
Get through
themselves.
the door.
Right, get through the door, sit on the airplane, any of that type. That's what I think he's taking it to the extreme.
Okay.
And we're talking about, and Penelope, and I don't mean to step on your toes, and I hope I'm not, but I think the alcoholics, are the functioning ones, the ones that, yeah, they may drink a lot more than what you think they should, or what their body needs, but they're functioning. They're not necessarily living
Yeah.
their
But I'm
whole
not
life
talking,
to
I'm
that
not only
extreme.
talking about that. I mean, we all know that there are all kinds of people with addictions.
Right.
There's a spectrum of
Yeah.
that, so that's what I'm saying. He's very critical, because he does seem to be generalizing when he says that this is, even when he's talking about the worst case scenario, that's not all that there is. This, and not saying that alcoholism or drug addiction or any type of addiction is good or plausible. I'm just saying that there's a spectrum of things. And, when he seems, he's just very harsh. He's a
Okay.
very harsh writer. And I think that he's not helpful. None of this chapter right here, I think that is not necessarily a helpful chapter for someone who is trying to rid themselves of alcoholism. I'm not gonna say that somebody might read it and say, okay, well, this is me and I don't want to be this person anymore. But I think because it is so critical, I think that it will run a lot of people who are addicted away.
Gotcha.
Well, like
That's
I
just
said,
how I see it.
I think he's
Yeah.
taking it to the extreme.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
And talking about the extreme, that makes you think twice. I'll also tell you, there's a program on TV, the 1,000-Pound Sisters. And the first time I watched it twice, and it made me think about the way I was eating. And at the time I started watching it, I weighed 190 pounds, which at my height is considered obese and overweight. But it caused me to think and begin to watch, what I was doing. And so I changed my lifestyle. Anybody who has been, will say, an AA, an alcoholic, and then gone to AA, it starts to change their way of thinking. Yet I don't think, I've never been to an AA meeting, but I had a friend who had gone to one, and she said they're harsh. They cut right to the core. They're not, willy-nilly about anything. And so that's where I think he's coming from. The next section is called Campaign Against Alcohol. The true effective campaign against alcohol is achieved by explaining with every detail the three defined aspects of this horrible vice. These three aspects of the path of alcohol, initiation, intoxication, and death, should be pointed out at home, in school, at the university, in academics, temples, lodges, ashrams, sanctuaries, etc. This is the best way to effectively campaign against alcohol. Dry laws prohibiting the sale of alcohol are useless, because drunkards then astutely invent their methods of making intoxicating drinks in a clandestine form. This does more harm than good to society. Only creative comprehension can save people from falling into this horrible and frightening vice. The audiovisual system of teaching is marvelous to combat the vice of alcohol. Any comments on that? I don't know
My
about,
question,
go ahead, Harriet.
no, my question is, why is this included in this
In the
whole?
book.
It's to know yourself. It's to know yourself. And as Penelope pointed out, he's talking mainly about alcohol, but it caused her to think about all the other addictions that there are in this world and that people may have. And, yes, this is on alcohol, but like I said, she saw that. When I first read it, that's what I saw. I also saw, as I was reading this, that people in my family that go back to my great grandfathers, none of them were alcoholics, and yet they drank every single day and functioned in life every single day, because that was not the most important thing. It was something they enjoyed, but it wasn't the crust of their life. In this particular section, I don't know in your area, but in Pennsylvania and also this area here, just before high school lets out the prom, they will have a car that's been in a wreck, completely, total, to kind of tell young people not to drink and drive, to take caution while they're at prom, and not to drive so fast, because they don't even have to be drunk. They can just be driving way too fast and lose control of the car. But has that deterred any child from doing that? I don't think so, because that's been going on for 20 some years. I remember when my kids were in school and seeing that. It didn't deter them. So that's, I think, what he's saying in this particular section. That education is the most important in any of the vices, any of the addictions that we might have. Even somebody who's addicted to meditating. Because
Addicted to
you can
what?
become addicted to anything that becomes your whole life and nothing, nothing else.
Excuse me.
Even though meditation and prayer, those are good, but, living and being a complete human being is more important.
Mhm.
At least that's where I'm coming from. I don't know about anybody else.
Okay.
But as Penelope pointed out, there are so many addictions, so many things that we lead our life to do and allow them to lead us rather than
Right. Mhm.
us taking charge of our own lives.
Gotcha.
Okay, the next session talks about the home. True education begins at home. Parents who drink give a bad example to their children, leading their children down the fatal path of the abyss. Children should be taught at home what this horrible vice is, the three aspects of this horrible path, etc. This type of teaching, accompanied by good example, is radical in warning the new generation against the vice of alcohol. Whatever is well learned is never forgotten. Any comments on that? Meditation and intoxication. Meditation and intoxication are the opposite poles of the same force. Meditation is positive. Alcoholic intoxication is negative. The Rosicrucian Gnostic should drink the wine of meditation in the sacred cup of concentration. It is necessary to keep far away from the negative aspect. It is necessary to not fall into the negative aspect of the mind. The vice of alcohol pertains to the negative aspect of the mind. The drunkard submerges himself into the atomic infernos of nature and becomes lost in the abyss. It is better to drink the wine of meditation in the sacred cup of concentration of thought. Let us concentrate our mind on our inner God. Let us meditate on him for entire hours, and in this manner we will reach samadhi, the ineffable ecstasy. Then we will be able to converse with the gods and enter into the great mysteries of nature. This is better than the delirium tremens, which allow the drunkard to penetrate into the atomic infernos of nature and live together with the demons of the abyss. The visions of the delirium tremens of drunken are actually real. They which they see in their visions really exist. They see larvae, demons, and horrible monsters that really exist in the atomic infernos of universal nature. They penetrate the abyss and see the beings of the abyss, perverse beings that live in the atomic infernos of nature. Anything on that?
I'm just listening. I'm enjoying.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Forrest.
I said, I'm just listening. I'm enjoying everything you're saying. I have no comments. I'm just really enjoying what you're
Okay,
saying.
anyone else have a comment?
No. Mm-mm.
Well, the only comment I have is, yes, meditation is positive, but if you let go of everything else and all you do is meditate, you're addicted to it. In other words, if you're living in a house where you're a hoarder, but yet all you do is meditate and the dust is inches thick and you just let go of everything else except eat and meditate, you're addicted to that.
Right.
That's how I see it. Now, he may not see it that way, but that's how I see it. I feel that in learning to know yourself, you have to take everything in balance.
Mhm.
Balance your spiritual life with your physical life. Be able to not only meditate and connect with your higher being and feel that ecstasy of the oneness of being,
Mhm.
but you also have to bring that into your everyday life so that
Mhm.
there's balance.
Okay.
And in doing that, you don't become intoxicated.
Mhm.
and meditation is more positive in that manner. And the same thing with prayer. And the same thing with reading. You can read spiritual books, but you also need to read other stuff to educate yourself and to know yourself better.
Gotcha.
So in this particular section, I don't agree with him completely. And in that regard. Anyone else? Okay, the next section is entitled Alcoholic Larvae. Every human being carries an atomic atmosphere perceptible to clairvoyance. Alcoholic larvae live in the fourth dimension. By the way, we must say that modern physics has already begun to admit to the four coordinates, the fourth dimension, the fourth vertical. The drunkard carries in this ultra-sensitive atmosphere alcoholic larvae that stimulate him in the vice that gave them life, impulsing him to drink. The aforementioned larvae only disintegrate with the fumes of sulfur. Any comment on that?
Yeah, well, I don't understand. I don't understand that because I mean, if you can see some, things from in the fourth dimension because of your delirium, you can see things. Oh, this is Harry coming back. You should be able to see the same things while you are in meditation. I mean, if they're there, they're there. You might not be frightened by them because while you're in meditation, and you might be frightened of them when you're intoxicated by, whatever thing that you got, drugs or alcohol, or, I guess that's basically the things that would, make you see things in the fourth dimension. I don't think you would necessarily, I don't think you can eat your way into the fourth dimension, or shop your way there, into seeing things there. So I'm assuming that, like drugs and alcohol are the things that, open up your consciousness more.
Well, I think it, when you're addicted to drugs and alcohol, I think it distorts your view of life. It's just like, and I don't know, but I'm sure you've all experienced this when you're driving along on a hot day and you look ahead and it looks like there's a pool of water in the road, and it really is, it's just like a mirage.
Mhm.
Have any of you experienced that? But I just think people that, are addicted to drugs and alcohol, they have a distorted view. And the smallest thing can look big, and horrible because their view is so distorted. So that's how I kind of saw that particular section. And as for the fourth dimension, the third dimension deals with height, width, and depth. The fourth dimension includes, as Penelope had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, time is more in the fourth dimension. So that's how I kind of see the fourth dimension. I don't see it as the vertical. But we'll go. Are we ready to move on? Okay, these next two sections are kind of short, so I'm going to read them together. The first one is called osmotherapy.
Actually, I did want to, I had to get Andre in. I had to get Andre in. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Hi, Andre.
oh, he's not in yet. He's coming in.
Okay.
I had to send him a link.
Okay.
Yeah, because for me, I'm still not understanding what is he talking about with this alcoholic larvae. You know, he's saying that, you know, it takes being, it says every human being carries around with him an atomic atmosphere perceptible to clairvoyance. These larvae live in the fourth dimension. So is he saying that you can only see these larvae, you know, by, you know, while you are intoxicated, you know, through alcohol?
Well, to me, you know, I don't completely understand it either, but to me, I just felt that he's talking about this distorted view. Because let's face it, people that we know who have addictions to especially drugs and alcohol, because as Harriet had even mentioned, they play on your mind. They tend to have a distorted view. I remember a kid in school, he was on marijuana, and he was walking down the hall and he kept saying he saw bees floating in the hallway. There were no bees in the hallway, but he saw them. And somebody else had gotten in touch with the guidance counselor and said that so-and-so is seeing bees in the hallway. And so she got, you know, left her office and went to see him, and he was telling her, and she realized, you know, this kid is high on marijuana.
Something else.
And he had a distorted view.
He has some other drugs.
He pointed out the bees, and what they were actually the kids walking down the hallway. He was seeing them as bees.
Yeah, he was on something other than. He
Oh, he
was
was
on
on
something.
something.
Yeah, he was on something. But anyway, so he's
That's
not
what I'm
actually
thinking.
talking about the fourth dimension. He's talking about the third dimension, and we have a distorted view of things in the third dimension. So he's not actually talking about the fourth dimension.
That's what I think, because I've never heard of the fourth dimension as the fourth vertical, but I have heard the fourth dimension as being length, width, depth, and time. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, Penelope, you mentioned how important time is. And that's where in the fourth dimension, we begin to realize the importance of time, along with the height, width, and depth of something. And that makes the four measurements, okay? The fifth dimension is where we're dealing with those four things plus the beyond. Not only seeing what we can touch, height, width, depth, and time, but seeing beyond that, which is where I think most of us in this group are entering into that fifth dimension, because, you know, we can't actually explain sometimes what we're feeling or what we're seeing, but we know, you know, we know, like, for example, Penelope, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, and if you do, I apologize. But when you contacted me yesterday about prayer, you know, we know I wasn't there, but you contacted me to send prayer, to send a prayer. So that energy is going, you know, that's from where we get into the fifth dimension, where we connect with those people that aren't even right there with us, but we ask them either for their energy, for their prayer, for their thoughts, you know, just to send it our way. And we reap the reward from it. Either the person we're dealing with calms down, or we calm down, we feel better, you know, about it. And so that's getting into the fifth dimension. And so I always understood the vertical and horizontal as the horizontal is the here and now, and the vertical is what's coming from source, the Godhead, divine, the universe, whatever, coming into us. So that's where you got the, you know, get that cross. So I don't fully understand what he meant by the fourth vertical, but
or the fourth dimension, because he's not really
yeah, I see it a
necessarily
little
talking
different.
about
And
Yeah.
that's the good thing about having these book studies, because we don't have to necessarily agree with the author in everything.
Right. I just
Okay.
wanted to know
It
where
opens
he
us
was
up for
coming
food for
from.
thought and in us sharing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it's important for each of us to share, because each of you have something to teach me and vice versa. We have something to teach each other
Mm-hmm.
and learn from it. So anyway, with osmotherapy, I'm not familiar with this, but he says perfumes combined with mental power constitute a marvelous healing system. Drunkards can be healed by wisely combining these two elements.
Is
Treatment.
he talking?
Go ahead,
No, I
Yvette.
was just gonna ask, is he talking about aromatherapy there?
He calls it
Probably.
osmotherapy, but that could be what he's talking about there. Don't forget, he's Spanish, so
Can we look
Yeah.
up osmotherapy?
I can do that.
okay,
Mhm.
I don't
Let's
have a
see what-
dictionary handy, so
Let's see what that is, because it might be, because in the with the alcoholic larvae, he was saying said larvae only disintegrate by the fumes of sulfur. So I think that and then the next osmotherapy, he's talking about how you can you combine perfumes with mental power. So, constitute a marvelous healing system. So
Yeah.
he probably is talking about aromatherapy. Probably is meaning that those things might be the same thing.
and also this was originally written in Spanish, so it's possible that certain things lose something in translation
Mm-hmm.
and that type of thing.
Okay,
Mm-hmm. You got it?
Go on, Harriet.
yeah, osmotherapy is the use of osmotically active substances to reduce the volume of intracranial contents. Serves as the primary medical treatment for cerebral edema.
Cerebral edema. That's like like water on the brain.
I was
So
just
it-
about
it-
to say, that was the thought that crossed my mind, because
So-
to me, edema means.
So I mean,
Water.
is there just a word for osmo? Os?
Let me,
Because it doesn't sound like that is aromatherapy.
Yeah.
no, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh,
Does osmo come from the word osmosis?
Maybe. Let's see if they got something in. I was trying to look to see if it was in the glossary, but it's not.
Oh.
Yeah, they got samadhi, nirvana. They don't have osmotherapy.
what is osmo?
What, in your book?
Yeah, I was just looking to see if it might be in the
Yeah. See, my
In the
book doesn't have,
glossary.
this book
Mhm.
doesn't have a glossary,
Yeah, does it the osmosis? Yeah, look and see if it.
because this is an old,
I'm
this is
not,
an
I'm
old
not
book.
getting anything.
For
when I Google
osmosis?
it.
Isn't osmosis a
not-
word though? What is osmosis?
Oh, osmosis?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Osmosis. So all
Okay, I
I'm-
got, I see osmosis is a process by which molecules of a solvent tend to pass through a semi-permeable membrane from
region of high water potential.
the solution into from a less concentrated solution into a more concentrated one, thus equalizing the concentrations on each side of the membrane. The process, number 2, is the process of gradual or unconscious assimilation of ideas, knowledge. So maybe that osmotherapy, because it does say that the perfumes combined with mental power constitute a marvelous healing system. So
That's why I
maybe,
asked a question about aromatherapy.
Yeah.
But maybe because it is the a process by which molecules of a solvent, say the perfumes,
Mhm.
pass through a semi-permeable membrane, and that would be like the nostril, from a less concentrated solution into a more concentrated one. And that might have something to do with, and like you were saying, that it has something to do with cerebral edema.
Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We ready to go on? Because the next is the treatment.
Well,
We
yeah.
ready to go on? Or
Well, I'm still just trying to figure out. Well, yeah. Well, let's look at the treatment and let's see if that has
help?
anything to do with the osmotherapy.
Okay. Treatment. Do you have any loved one who is a victim of the vice of alcoholism? When he is asleep, hold his hand with your right hand. Make him smell a delicious perfume, a rose extract, and then talk to him with a soft voice as if he was awake. Advise him, explain to him in a detailed way what the horrible vice of alcoholism is. Remember that when the body sleeps, the ego leaves the body and travels in the fourth dimension. The words you utter to the sleeping person reach the eardrum, then go on to the brain's sensory center, and are then transmitted to the ego, even when the latter is far away from the physical body. On awakening, the ego returns to the physical body, and if he does not remember what you told him, you can be certain that all you have said has remained in your loved one's subconscious. These words produce their effect little by little, and the day finally arrives when the patient is cured of the horrible vice of alcoholism.
Well.
Okay.
I, no, I just, no, before we move on, I looked up osmotherapy in the Webster dictionary on online, and this is what I got. The word you've entered isn't in the dictionary.
Okay. Like I said, this was written in Spanish to begin with and then translated. So it is very possible that it goes along with what Harriet was saying about aromatherapy, because perfumes are an aroma.
Mhm.
And when combined with the mental aspect, they can form a healing, which what he's saying here in the treatment is mental, because you're talking to the person when they're asleep. And the same thing can be done at a distance.
But it also says too, make him a small, delicious perfume, a rose extract. I don't know about roses, but I know lavender is supposed to be calming.
Well, and you don't even have to, I mean, you can, but
I think that's what osmotherapy is. It is a perfume.
That's what
it is a perfume combined, because you did give us a definition at first. You first of all, you did give us a definition.
But that was from, I think, Wikipedia. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that's fine, because I mean, this is some form of therapy that, I'm not a therapist, so I guess they got all they got all kinds of forms of therapy. So, and this one seems to be different only from aromatherapy, whereas aromatherapy is, this one seems, osmotherapy seems to be a little bit more detailed than just, plain long aromatherapy.
Mhm. Because also in Reiki, when you're dealing with somebody, you can send them a message or even tell them to smell pizza fresh out of the oven and to close their eyes and to smell it. And depending on how much they want to smell whatever it is you're suggesting, they can smell it.
Right.
And they don't even have to really be smelling that type of thing. But I do know for a fact that any suggestion that we give to somebody when they are sleeping does have an effect when they wake up. This is off the topic, but my husband, when we first got married, he wanted to wait 2 years before having children. And about 2 months after we were married, I found out I was pregnant. And I thought, well, 2 months is not 2 years. I'm not going to be very happy.
You got the two in there.
So he went, anyway, he went to sleep and we were laying there and he's sound asleep. And I whispered in his ear, "You're going to be a father. You're going to be a father. You are going to be a wonderful father." And I rolled over and went to sleep. The following morning, he woke up and he said, "I had a strange dream." And I said, "Oh, yeah, what was it?" He said, "I had a dream that I was going to be a father and a good one at that." And I said, "Well, how do you feel about it?" And he says, "Well," he said, "I wanted to wait 2 years, but if it's going to be, it's going to be." And I said, "Well, honey, that wasn't a dream. That was me whispering in your ear. You're going to be a father and a good one, a wonderful one." And that, so, for me, that kind of showed that even though he was sleeping and wasn't aware, that he did pick it up. He got the message and that. So, I don't know, about this treatment, but I do think that when somebody is ready to change any habit or any addiction they have, nothing you or I say is going to make them change right then and there. They have to want to make that change. But we can silently see them as whole and perfect, and that when they're ready, that they'll, be wanting to change.
Mhm. Well, when you have any type of addiction, it takes a long time. So, I guess that this is what because this seems this osmotherapy, it doesn't seem where there's a lot of connection between the person and the person is really not doing it. I don't know what the word is, but they're kind of a lot, it's just happening to them. They're not a real participant in it. They might be saying, yeah, you can do that. You can do that to me, but they're not a real participant in it. But that might be a good way for them to start. Because a lot of times, whenever you have some type of addiction, it takes a while to get past that addiction. It's not, it doesn't come overnight. And sometimes you might be ready, but the addiction is so strong that you need help to go along with it. So maybe this is what some of the things that he's talking about.
And the
Although,
thing is, the individual has to want to. No
yeah,
matter
I mean,
how.
you can
Yeah.
want to, but the addiction is so strong.
Yeah.
The addiction will, that's why people go to rehab like 8 times before it actually kicks in, because you wanted to from the first time. It's just that the addiction was so strong. So it takes a while for it to actually kick in. So I think that this is what he's saying with the osmotherapy. And I'm assuming that this person is maybe in rehab or something like that, where they are, this is something that you will assist them in, while they're in some type of program,
Mhm.
some type of therapy.
Okay, we ready to
Mhm.
move on? The next, oh, go on, Harriet.
Yeah.
No, as I was listening to you, well, I was thinking back. I used to be a smoker, and I had gotten to the point where I really wanted to quit. And I would go 2, 3 days without a cigarette. And then something would happen, something would trigger me, and I would go, rather than go and bum a cigarette off of somebody, I would go and buy a whole pack. And buying the whole pack, I wasn't going to smoke one and throw it away, throw the rest of them away. And it took me quite a number of years to go through this process of on again, off again, until finally, and I don't even know when I actually had my last cigarette or what the situation was. But and that was an addiction.
Mhm.
And I had a very strong, because my desire was, because I no longer enjoyed it, but I wanted to be rid of it, but I couldn't.
Nicotine is the worst.
Yeah.
Nicotine is a really hard habit to break. It really is, because of the all of the additives and the addictive additives that they put in the cigarettes. So nicotine is really hard. It's harder to quit smoking cigarettes than it is to quit heroin.
Stop. Oh, wow.
You know, yeah, it really is. I mean, you know, and that's legal, and that's a legal thing. So, and it's legally acceptable for them to put that much addictive additives in an instrument, and that they're going to sell you, and now, you know, for a lot of money actually. So, but yeah, you know, you can't get it, you know, you're not going to get arrested for smoking a cigarette. You'll
Smoking
get
a
arrested for
cigarette.
selling one. Get arrested for selling one, but you can't get arrested for smoking one. So,
Okay.
but that's
All right.
another rabbit hole. We don't have to go down that one.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Alice. All right. The next section is entitled Practice. Lie down and remain calmly in bed. Open your arms and legs to the right and left to form the flaming 5-pointed star. Relax your muscles properly. The process of relaxation is easy if combined with imagination. Practice the exercise of relaxation as indicated to you in lesson 2. Mental relaxation. Once the relaxation of the physical body has been obtained, it is necessary to relax the mind. Mental relaxation is also obtained with the help of the imagination. Observe all the thoughts that come to mind, all the memories that assault you, all the worries, etc., and study them to find out their origin. The study of all this will reveal many things to you. It will make you get to know your defects, your errors, etc. In this manner, you will know how your ego works. Analyze each defect. Try to comprehend each defect in all the levels of the mind. Study each thought, memory, or emotion that assaults you. Comprehend each thought. Then imagine a profound abyss and throw each studied thought, each memory, worry, etc., into that abyss. In this manner, your mind will remain silent and still. In the silence and quietude of your mind, you will be able to see and hear the intimate. He is the eternal master. He is your eternal God. Any thoughts or comments on that?
To me, this is probably what the chapter should have been about, was analyzing your defects as opposed to alcoholism. You know, I
Okay.
think that would have been you know, a more easier thing to understand. But I guess, you know, I don't know, maybe he had, Maybe he had something, he was dealing with some alcoholics. I don't know.
Well, it could
the
be
time.
too that, I mean, he called it a vice, but alcoholism could be a defect, could be seen as a defect.
Yeah.
It's just one of
Hmm.
them. And so maybe he was using that just as an example of a
Mhm.
defect. I don't know.
Yeah.
I do know that I tried this and I ended up falling asleep because, and I guess in a way, I think as a young kid, I was taught to just empty my mind into the whole. Going to sleep, don't try to think of what you're going to do the next day or what's going to happen if you're excited. Just empty any thought that comes in into the hole. Dig the hole deep enough so that every thought will go into it. And in the process of digging that hole, I ended up going to sleep. And so as a kid, that was easy. And as I got to become an adult, I put my head on the pillow, start to say the Lord's Prayer, and next thing you know, I'm asleep and I never finish it until the following morning. I find myself saying the prayer where I left off and not being conscious of it. It's like I wake up and I hear myself, lead us not into temptation or let us not be tempted. And I'm thinking, now where did that come from? And then I realized, oh, last night, that's what you were saying. And that's where you left off. So I don't really know. I've never completed this exercise in the way that he said it, because like I said, I fall asleep. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear what your experiences are in trying this. I've tried this several times and I haven't gotten it to work.
But do you know any of your defects?
And my defects, eating is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like to eat. I mean, you see me at your sitting in your kitchen.
Oh, well, you eat just a regular amount.
Yeah, but if I was a regular
In my opinion,
if I was a regular person, that would be fine. But at my height, 10 potato chips put on 5 pounds. For somebody else, they don't put on anything. Those 10
Yeah,
chips.
I don't even notice stuff like that because counting
I
10 potato chips. But
I
but I think that this is what it's saying. If you know your because it says this, the study of all this will reveal many things to you. It will make you get to know your defects. So, I guess, if you already know what some of your defects are, you will, you can, you don't necessarily have to analyze them like that. I guess, this seems to me is like the stuff that you don't know that you have. This is how I'm seeing it. Is that things that you don't know what you have, that there is an attachment to why you like to eat, so you will be able when you're going to sleep, instead of just you would pay attention to what it maybe it is telling you that, but you haven't heard it because you automatically fall asleep. But maybe next time when you try it, see if you are analyzing why you like to eat so much, why you like to have 11 potato chips instead of 10.
Yeah.
So that might be.
Well, one thing that was
This is the only
ingrained,
thing that I'm seeing. What this is
one thing
he
that was
saying.
ingrained in me when I was a kid was eat and you will grow. You need to eat to grow. Because I guess when I was real little, I didn't like to eat. And my parents kept telling me, if you eat, you will grow. And so I think that's
part of
part of it. And so anyone else?
As you were reading this, and when you started with the exercise part, the first thing I thought about, I've been watching a series on Gaia called Sacred Geometry. And Gilbert, and that in all of his little exercises, the person is standing, so maybe.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you-
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he gives this lecture and then he talks about, you know, the exercises and it's a form of meditation that he's advocating. And in all of these little exercises, and each one builds on the previous one. But in all of them, the person is standing. So maybe that's.
What came to my
Mhm.
mind while you were saying that was, how many of you seen where they have the, it's the man and he's standing with his arms out like this and
The
his legs
star.
out, the
Mhm.
star,
Yeah.
and he's standing. Now that's
Yeah.
something, I'll have to try that, Harry. Thank you.
Mm.
And what you're just talking about, because what he's talking about is exactly what you just said, spreading
Right.
your arms out
Mhm.
and standing with your feet shoulder width apart. And
Uh-huh.
then he shows, you know, well, like I said, sacred geometry. So he's
Mhm.
using a lot of angles and things like that. So he's actually showing the star when he does that.
There you go. Thank
Mhm.
you.
That's very interesting.
Are we ready to go on to the next section?
Yeah.
The next two sections are, well, actually, the next three sections I'll read because they're small and short. Excuse me. Concentration. When the mind has achieved absolute quietude and silence, it can concentrate on the intimate. This concentration is done with the help of prayer. Pray to your intimate. Try to converse with the intimate. Remember, excuse me a second. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem.
Pray to your intimate. Try to converse with the intimate. Remember that praying is conversing with God. You can pray without formula. That is to say, talk to God. Tell him what your heart feels with infinite love. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Meditation. Whoever achieves perfect concentration can meditate on his internal God. Reflect on your internal God. Identify yourself with him. Live in him.
Mhm.
Contemplation. Whoever learns to quiet the mind, to concentrate the mind and pray, can practice perfect meditation and reach the heights of internal contemplation. On reaching these heights, we are in ecstasy. We can talk face to face with the ineffable gods. Study the marvels of the infinite cosmos and travel through the infinite in spirit and soul. In that state of ecstasy, the physical body remains asleep and abandoned. Now you will comprehend why it is convenient to practice these exercises during instances of drowsiness. Sleep is a power that should be taken advantage of to consciously achieve ecstasy. Any comments on that?
Well, whenever I think about, concentration and meditation, I always think about Yogananda and how he would, when he would be in samadhi for like weeks at a time, and people would, he had his, what was the name of his group, fellowship? I don't know, something about fellowship. Huh?
I don't
Yogaville?
remember.
I didn't hear you.
I said Yogaville?
No,
Are you
not
talking
Yogaville.
ashram?
But- yeah, but no, I mean, some kind of fellowship. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, when to really be that in to have that much concentration and to have that much that you can really be in meditation for weeks, because they said he would be in meditation for weeks. So that means he didn't eat, he didn't use the bathroom, he didn't stand. So when he came out of samadhi, he would be completely and totally refreshed. It was as if, he had just taken a nap, so it's amazing. It's really amazing what the body can do, how we can, ascend to so many different levels of consciousness. And I just think that it's amazing.
Mhm.
Mhm. It's like being in suspended animation, except it's in that oneness.
Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. So, that's, really fascinating. Yeah. Can you imagine just sitting and, you don't need to wash. You don't need to drink water. You don't need to eat. You don't need to use the bathroom. And you're not harmed in any way. You are energized, fed, um, neutralized by spirit. I think that's, it's amazing that, it's things like that can happen to you. But anyway, it is 8:30 on the nose. And I think that this was a really interesting class. I think that I what I learned from it, and so I'll just go ahead and start the round table. What I learned from it is that, he always, this guy right here, Samuel on
UNVR. UNVR.
on VR. One of the things that that he really keeps you like on your toes, because you really have to understand him, what's him, what's his language, where he's coming from, how it really affects and approaches you. So, there's something for everybody, and when we think that we only have to read one source of material or dedicate ourselves to one philosophy or one way of thinking, it really, in my own personal opinion, and maybe for me, it's very limiting. It doesn't open or expand your level of consciousness. And for me, it doesn't induce growth, because it really helps me to grow, to understand, okay, well, this guy, he's just really, really harsh, and he's out there on the third wing, and I don't know what he's talking about tonight. But, when we get down to it, when, like that whole, one of his exercises was, all about how to, I'm on the wrong chapter. One of his exercises, that mental relaxation, was all about how to find that deeper aspects of what your one thing is. Because if there is a glaring defect that you think that you have, there's a root to it. And once we really investigate that root, that's when we can either pull it up, dry it up, or expand it, because it might need to grow in a different direction. So I think that that's one of the things that I see, for myself in this. And I like, what I can get from it, and how I can apply this to my life, is that I I can be open to everything and everybody all the time. I don't have to limit myself to, anything. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult for me. Sometimes that can be difficult for me.
Okay, thanks, Penelope.
So who's next? Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay.
Because first of all, I think that if he had not focused in on alcoholism and talked more about addictions no matter what kind of addiction it is, to me, I think I would have gotten a lot more out of it because personally, I cannot relate to
Mm.
alcoholism. And I think a more general view of addiction, if you will, for lack of a better word, I think I would have gotten more out of it. But I will say that there were some aspects, of the things that he had to say. I was able to gain something that perhaps I can move forward with, where he talks about the psychology of the drunkard. And again, like I said earlier, anything like that, or anything that is mind altering, it just messes with the mind. And you can't, how do I want to put this? When it messes with your mind, you're not able to think straight.
Mhm.
Whereas with other addictions, you're thinking, but are you thinking clearly? Because you're in a trance, a state of ecstasy. When you're out there shopping, or and I mean, and I used to, until it wore on my knees, but I used to run. And I would read about athletes, getting into
Runner's
their
high.
training and getting into their high.
Runner's high.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that kind of thing. And sometimes, getting into that high is good. And
Mhm.
at other times, depending on what the stimulus is, I guess. But some of his views I can relate to, and some of them they just go over my head.
Well, that's what's so nice about Inner Haven. And as Penelope had said about the fact that we're not geared to just read from one particular author or one particular philosophy. And if you think about it, you have Course of Miracles, the Tarot,
The Kabbalah.
Andre was what Andre has shared, Science of Mind, this, what Forrest has shared with the I Am. It is just opening us up to a vast sense of knowledge that we can take in what feels right to us and let go of what we're not ready for or what we don't feel right about. But it's opening up this vast
Fountain.
fountain, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, because that was what was coming to me. It's like seeing it, this fountain, and it's just everything is just kind of spewing out. It's coming up and coming out, and you're just so refreshed and nourished by it.
Mhm.
And I could relate to the alcoholism, not because there was alcoholism in the family, but because of it never being thought of as something wrong. Drinking wine or beer, or I remember my parents used to drink Tom Collins highballs and that, but they never drank to the point where they couldn't,
Function.
and that was their mainstay and everything else came secondary. And that's how I see somebody who is an alcoholic that comes, or addicted to drugs or heroin or marijuana or food or whatever, shopping, driving, whatever it is that takes them out of the ordinary every day that becomes their focal point, that's an addiction to me. If it's in balance, then it's not an addiction. It may not necessarily be good for the body. I mean, like I like potato chips and candy bars, and I love sugar in my oatmeal. And those may not be necessarily addictions, but too much sugar is not good for the body. So you gradually learn, to let go. And with him, I think he does take things to the extreme. And if we realize that he takes things to the extreme in order to wake us up to the lesser, it helps. Where if he talked to us and mollycoddled us and talked very lovingly, it might go in one ear and out the other ear. But when somebody, just like earlier I had said about how mad I was at my daughter, I couldn't just say I was mad at her. I had to use that word. And that's why I asked you to, apologize my French, but it did piss me off the way she acted. And mad was not the right word. The other word showed how angry I was, at that. But it was because she never had that much money, and she felt I'm a grown up. I can spend my money however I please. So that's why I think he treats us in the way he writes in such a way that is going to wake us up and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe this might work. Let me give this a try. Or maybe this won't work. I'm not going to try this. And like, Harriet mentioning about standing, I'm going to try that standing rather than laying down. And maybe standing, I won't go to sleep. And if I do, I'll fall over and I'll wake up. But anyway, this has been very good. Forrest or Andre, do you have any comments or anything you'd like to share with us?
Oh, they fell off.
Oh, they fell off? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We'll just send them a thank you for being here and a goodbye. I hope they receive it. I'm sure they know we care when they join.
Well, that's it. I think this was, like I said, this is always, these classes are always interesting. They they open me up to other thoughts, things that I might not have considered, things, the way that we all look at things a little bit different because we're all individuals. And because we are individuals, we are as filled with our God self as anybody is. So that means that what I say is just as important as what Harriet says or what Sakina says. And once we get to this point where we accept people as as God, when we look at each other as God, then we'll be able to see what they're saying as messages from God, and I don't have to wait till some TV preacher or somebody over here says what God is telling me, some prophet or prophesizes what God is saying to me. I can hear it from anyone, and I can receive it through my inner ear, and I'll be able to hear that what God is telling me from anybody, whether it is from a drunkard, because God speaks to all of us all the time. So that's one of the things that for us, first of all, not to judge anybody, and for us not to have fear within ourselves, but to become strong within ourselves, to understand who we are and how we can grow into our perfected self, because we are already perfect. We just have to believe that and grow into our perfect self. Well, the next thing that's going on is Inner Haven Day. I'm so excited. 7 years, everybody. 7 years for Inner Haven. And Sakina, I think you've been here like pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah, since 2013.
Yeah. So pretty much from the beginning. So how exciting it is that we're moving forward. And, we're still here, still, we still have that same core group of people. I feel that we have grown a lot in our own consciousness. And I think that we have given, our communities and the world as much as we possibly can. And we will continue to do that. So that is going to be on this Saturday. It's going to be at Sandra's house, and we're going to start at 1 p.m. And this will also be on, we're going to also try to do virtual at the same time. We'll see how it works. We're all in the process of learning and
Growing.
growing and, figuring it all out. Then on Sunday, I think on Sunday we're just gonna kind of take it slow. Whatever happens, happens. If we get together, that'll be fine. If we don't get together, that'll be fine. But we won't have a subject to speak on. We'll just have an open discussion,
Okay.
and that will be it for now. So you all just continue to look forward to living your life as perfected beings.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to close us out in prayer?
Harriet, do you want to, or? Harriet,
Oh, I'm sorry.
were you meditating? Do you want to close this out?
I can. Yes.
Okay.
Let us close our eyes, take in a full, deep, cleansing breath, breathing in health, abundance, and positivity. And realize that as we take in all of that positive energy, it is coming from the universe, from our Creator. And as we let go and exhale, we are giving to the plants that give us the oxygen that helps us, that keeps us alive. We are grateful for this time that we've spent together as we grow and learn. We're grateful for the knowledge that we gain in these discussions. And let us use that knowledge wisely to help not only ourselves, but everyone that we come in contact with. And so it is.
And so it is.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And see you Saturday.
Yes.
See you Saturday.
Bye.
Bye.